It was a few weeks ago. I often worked late hours as a software developer. I'd drive home on winding country roads after every shift. The rides were usually quiet, but rainy nights changed everything. The familiar roads felt darker, more isolating, especially in heavy rain. One night the rain was pouring down hard. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up, but it didn't help much. I was only a few miles from home when I glimpsed something by the roadside. It was a figure, half hidden in the shadows. My heart raced. Part of me thought I should stop. So, I pulled over, tires splashing through puddles. I stepped out into the cold night air looking around, but the figure was gone. Just the rain and the dark trees. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. I got back in the car, shaking my head. Weeks passed, and the rain returned. I was driving the same stretch of road when I saw it again. This time it was closer. My heart started pounding. I felt drawn to stop. I parked the car, sitting still for a moment, breathing heavily. I opened my door, mud squelching beneath my boots. I strained to see, but there was nothing there, just rain falling. After that night, the figure appeared more often. At intersections I knew well, near an old abandoned gas station. Every time, I felt the urge to help whoever, or whatever, it was. But I found nothing each time I stopped. It left me feeling frantic and confused. Was I losing my mind? Then my GPS started acting up. I'd be driving when the route would suddenly change. It would try to lead me away from familiar roads. I couldn't understand why. On one dark stretch of road, I heard whispers inside my car. They were soft, almost like distant voices. I cranked up the radio, hoping to drown them out, but they kept coming. Then came the night that really shook me. The rain came down thick, almost blinding. I took my usual route, the turn past the old barn. That's when I saw it standing in the middle of the road. The figure, just staring right at me. I felt frozen, like I was stuck in my seat. I wanted to ask, "What do you want?" But I could only grip the wheel and stare. It raised a hand slowly, and I felt cold wash over me. Panic hit, and I took my foot off the brake, ready to back away. That's when I heard my name. I turned, thinking someone was there, but no one was. I felt terror clawing at me. I floored it, desperate to leave whatever it was behind. I didn't stop until I was home. I still shake when I think back to that drive. The figure, the whispers, it left me feeling unsafe on those roads. What was it? What did it want? I don't know, and maybe I'm better off that way. But I can't shake the feeling that I'll see it again. The next few nights were quiet. Too quiet. I stayed home, avoiding late drives as much as I could. I focused on work, fixated on code and deadlines. But still, the image of that figure haunted me. Every time it rained, I felt the pull to be back on those roads. 2 weeks later, rain returned. Heavy, pounding rain that made the world outside my window look like a blurry painting. I sat on my couch, staring at the blank screen of my laptop. Then I heard it. The sound of water hitting the pavement, a soft reminder of what lay beyond the walls. I couldn't help it. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Driving felt different this time, anxiety mingling with something else. Curiosity? I drove past the barn, the gas station, and as I approached the spot where I first saw the figure, a chill spread through me. This time I was determined. If I saw it again, I'd confront it. As I neared the old barn, I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. I hit the brakes hard, skidding on the slick pavement. There it was, standing near the trees, almost gliding. My heart pounded. I watched as it stepped closer, shadows shrouding its face. I swung the car door open, yelling, "Hey!" My own voice startled me, cracking in the heavy air. The figure paused. I took a few steps forward, feeling the rain cascade down my face. But instead of responding, it turned around and began to walk deeper into the woods. Panic gripped me. I hesitated for a second, but I felt I needed to follow. Maybe it led to the answers I sought. I stumbled through the thick brush, rain soaking my clothes. I called out again, "Wait, what do you want?" Just then, a loud crack echoed through the trees. I froze, thinking it might be thunder, but it sounded closer, almost like a branch snapping. My chest tightened as I weighed my options. I could turn back or keep following. Curiosity pushed me forward. I took a few more steps and then stopped. There it was again, the whispering. This time, it was clearer, voices weaving around me like a fog. "Help us," they pleaded, but the words twisted in my mind. I felt a sudden gust of wind and the temperature dropped sharply. That's when I saw them, more figures emerging from the dark, their faces pale and blurred. Panic surged through me. They were all looking at me, their gazes empty and pleading. "Help us," they echoed, voices blending into one chilling chorus. I turned to run back to my car, heart racing, but the whispers grew louder, filling my ears. I stumbled over roots, adrenaline pumping, and just as I reached my vehicle, everything went dark. The world collapsed around me. I gasped for breath, heart thundering as I slammed the car door. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only felt the wild urge to escape. What were they? What did they want? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, it was only just beginning. I sat in the car for what felt like an eternity, the engine idling softly as rain battered the windshield. My heart gradually slowed, but the chaos in my mind wouldn't quiet. I needed to go home, to scrub the memory of those figures from my mind. Yet I felt anchored to the spot, drawn back into that darkness. After a few deep breaths, I decided I had to leave. I put the car in gear and took a few shaky turns until I reached a main road. My palms were sweaty, gripping the wheel tightly as I navigated home. The landscape blurred past me, but I couldn't shake the voices from my head. "Help us." The next morning, the rain forced me to stay indoors again. I fidgeted with the remnant of a cold cup of coffee. The comforting routine felt distant, replaced by a gnawing curiosity. I grabbed my laptop and began searching for anything related to the area. Disappearances, accidents, anything that might explain what I saw. Hours dragged on. The clock ticked slowly as I dug deeper, lost in forums and news articles. That's when I stumbled upon a local legend about a stretch of woods, haunted, they said, by souls lost in a tragic accident decades ago. A family of 4 had vanished without a trace, leaving only a wrecked car behind. My hands went cold, a chill creeping up my spine. I realized the old barn was right by that area. The legend spoke of vague figures seen wandering the fields near where the family had last been. Rumors of cries for help echoed in the nights. The whispers I heard during the rain mingled with the stories in the back of my mind, a horrifying realization settling in. Did I disturb them? That evening, determined to find answers, I made a plan. As night approached, I equipped myself with more than just a flashlight this time. I had a small tape recorder, thinking maybe I could capture the whispers. I parked my car a few feet away from the barn, heartbeat quickening in a mix of anticipation and horror. The rain fell softly again as I stepped out, the air thick with tension. My flashlight cut through the murkiness, revealing the old barn's weathered walls. I approached the entrance, hesitating at first before switching on the recorder. I whispered into it. "If there's anyone here, please talk to me, Hawk." Silence enveloped me, save for the soft patter of rain. My resolve started to waver, and I was ready to leave when I heard it. A distant, soft sobbing coming from deeper within the woods. My heart raced again, but this time, I had to know. I followed the sound, flashlight shaking in my grip. I ventured further into the brush, the sobs growing louder. Thin trees loomed around me, their branches reaching out like hands, clawing at the air. "Help us," I heard the voices again, clearer now, merging with those sobs. I pressed on, compelled by an unknown force. Then I saw something flicker in my flashlight beam, a shadow darting between the trees. There was only one way to go. I took a deep breath and called out, "I'm here, I can help." But just as I stepped forward, the sobbing stopped. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, and a figure loomed before me, face still hidden in shadows. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't know if I should run or stand my ground. "Turn back," it said in a voice that echoed around me, chilling my very core. I took a step back, ready to flee, but the figure vanished into the darkness. I turned, panic surging in my chest. The forest erupted into turmoil as the whispers returned, enveloping me in a frenzy. I sprinted back toward my car, desperate to escape the shadows. But as I approached the vehicle, I froze. The door was open, and my tape recorder lay on the ground. I picked it up, heart racing, and pressed play. What I heard was beyond anything I could have ever expected. The recording crackled to life, static cloaking the initial sounds. Then, I heard it. My own voice, shaky and hesitant. "If there's anyone here, please talk to me." A chill ran through me as a responsive whisper crept into the background, almost drowned out by rain. "Help us," it echoed, layered with the sounds of distance and despair. Then, a low sobbing rose among the whispers. I stood frozen, fear pulsing through my veins. The voices weren't just in my head. They were real, mingling with my desperate call for help. I had to make sense of this. I rewound the recording, playing it again and again, but each replay only deepened the uneasy feeling in my stomach. Maybe the spirits I encountered sought something more, something they would never be able to ask directly. As the rain pattered relentlessly overhead, I forced myself to think through the terror gripping me. What if the dire desires of those lost souls were tied to the barn or the woods? My mind raced with possibilities, but I needed to be brave. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. Just then, I noticed the flickering light of my cell phone. I dug it out, fingers trembling, and opened the Notes app. I started jotting down everything I'd heard, piecing together scraps from my mind about the legend, the family, and what the figure in the woods had warned me against. Suddenly, a noise cut through my thoughts, a distinct rustling from the nearby brush. My heart leaped into my throat. Was it just the wind? Or something else? I felt eyes on me, as if the forest itself was watching. I grabbed the flashlight ready to shine its beam into the darkness. As I turned toward the source of the noise, I saw a delicate shape illuminated in my light. A small girl stood there with unkempt hair, drenched from the rain. Her clothes were tattered, and she seemed to flicker, her form wavering slightly. "Help," she whispered, her voice hauntingly familiar, growing louder than the fallen rain. I felt an inexplicable pull toward her. Despite the horror of the moment, an urge to protect her surged through me. "Are you okay?" I called, voice quivering. The girl took a tentative step closer, and in that instant the air grew heavier. "You have to find them," she said, her gaze drifting, as if staring past me. Then with a blink, she disappeared. I staggered back, confusion and dread crashing through me. What did she mean? Who did I need to find? I was about to spin back to the car, desperate for answers, when I caught another sound. This time, a low growl emanating from the trees. My instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity kept me glued to the spot. In that darkness, shadows were shifting again, more chaotic this time. Just as I readied my flashlight to confront whatever was out there, a blinding pain erupted at the back of my head. The world spun, darkness engulfing me. The last thing I recalled was the girl's sad expression, and then everything went blank. I jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. The rain still poured outside, drumming irregularly against the car's roof. I blinked, struggling to gather my thoughts. It took me a moment to remember where I was, the car, alone in the dark woods, and the girl. My head throbbed, and I felt the back of it gingerly. There was no blood, just a tender spot where I'd been hit. I shifted in my seat, heart racing. Had I imagined the girl? The growl? The feeling of being watched? I grabbed my cell phone again. The screen lit up showing the time, 2:27 a.m. Hours had passed. I didn't know how long I'd been out. I decided I couldn't stay idle. Whatever was happening out there wouldn't wait for me to gather my courage. I needed answers. Stepping out of the car, the cold air hit me like a slap. The forest loomed tall, its branches intertwined like skeletal fingers. I switched on the flashlight, illuminating the path ahead. The girl's words echoed in my mind. "You have to find them." But who were they? And how was I supposed to find them? I stepped forward, energy fueled by excitement mixed with dread. I moved carefully, the beam of my flashlight dancing over the blackened trees. The damp earth squished under my sneakers as I trudged deeper into the woods. As I ventured in, I saw something glimmering on the ground a few feet away. Cautiously, I approached and found a small, tarnished locket. It was the same kind I remembered my grandmother wearing. I flipped it open and gasped. Inside was a tiny picture of a girl, her wide eyes staring back at me. The resemblance to the girl I'd seen earlier was uncanny. Anxiety clawed at my stomach. I pocketed the locket, my mind whirling. Had this belonged to her? It couldn't be a coincidence. Just then the growl I heard before cut through the air again, deeper and more menacing. Panic rose in my chest and I turned on my heel. I couldn't let fear paralyze me now. I had to know the truth. As I hurried back toward where I thought the car was parked, I felt a shift in the air. Then I saw them. Shadows moving between the trees, slipping closer. A chill settled over me, and I realized they were not just random shadows. They were figures, spectral forms that seemed to merge with the darkness. "What do you want?" I shouted, voice wavering. They froze, their outlines sharp against the sallow light of my flashlight. Then, clear as day, a collective whisper echoed through the air. "Find us." My heart raced. Who were they? What had I gotten myself into? Before I could think, a force surged through the air, pulling me into the depths of the trees. I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance, unsure whether to run or confront whatever awaited me. As the shadows crept closer, I realized I was no longer alone. Someone, or something, was coming. I stumbled forward, panic gripping me as the shadows began to take form. They shimmered like smoke, twisting and wavering in the beam of my flashlight. The air around me felt electric, alive with an unspeakable energy. I could hear the whispers again, but this time they seemed closer, more insistent. "Find us!" My instincts screamed at me to run, to dart back to the safety of my car and abandon whatever was happening here. But a surge of curiosity kept me rooted in place. I had to know what they wanted. I had to know who they were. Then, right before my eyes, one of the figures shifted. It stepped into the light, revealing a girl who looked just like the one in the locket. Her hair fell wildly around her face, and her eyes were wide, filled with both fear and desperation. "Please," she rasped. "Help us." I blinked, my voice caught in my throat. "Who are you?" "I can't explain now. We don't have time," she insisted, glancing over her shoulder. "They're coming." A cold rush of dread swept over me. I glanced around, but the moonlight didn't penetrate the dense canopy above, casting the world into darkness. The shadows were still there, lingering, and I felt their presence wrapping around me like a vice. "Who's coming?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Those who trap us!" she cried. "You have to hurry!" I took a step closer, heart pounding. "Trap you? What do you mean?" "We were taken—" A loud, guttural snarl erupted from the darkness, cutting her off abruptly. The girl whipped her head toward the sound, her expression shifting to pure terror. I felt my stomach drop as I sensed movement all around me. Without thinking, I grasped her hand. "We need to go. Now." We took off into the woods, our feet crashing against the damp underbrush. The shadows seemed to follow, racing behind us. My flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering as fear seeped into my bones. I was running blind. "What do I need to do?" I shouted, breathless. "Find the circle. You have to find the circle," she urged, pulling me along. "Circle? What circle?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she kept running, dragging me deeper into the woods. The growling behind us grew louder, more insistent. Whatever pursued us wasn't going to let us escape easily. Suddenly, I noticed a faint glow up ahead, a soft light breaking through the trees. "There!" I shouted, feeling a spark of hope. We made for the light, pushing through the thick branches until we stumbled into a small clearing. In the center was a stone circle, weathered and ancient. The glow came from within it, pulsating like a heartbeat. It felt almost alive, inviting and terrifying at the same time. "Step inside," the girl urged, her eyes locked on the shadows now looming at the edge of the clearing. I hesitated, looking back at the encroaching figures. "What if it's a trap?" "I don't know. But it's our only chance," she answered, panic lacing her voice. Before I could respond, the shadows lunged forward, their forms shifting rapidly. Heart racing, I took the girl's hand and sprinted into the stone circle, feeling a surge of warmth wash over us as we crossed the threshold. The world around me blurred, everything dissolving into a whirl of colors and sounds. It felt unreal, like I was being pulled into another dimension. Then, everything went dark. I gasped, the cold air hitting my face in an instant. But I wasn't in the clearing anymore. I was somewhere else. Somewhere that felt both familiar and wrong. And the girl was gone. I blinked hard, trying to clear the haze from my vision. The air was thick, a metallic taste lingering on my tongue. I stood in a dim place, the walls of stone closing in around me. The ground was uneven beneath my feet, and a low hum echoed in the distance. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the damp air around me. No answer. My heart raced again, searching for any sign of the girl. Had I lost her forever? This felt wrong. The shadows I had fled from were still fresh in my mind, and I wasn't ready for any more encounters. I took a hesitant step forward, the uneven surface crunching underfoot. The weight of silence settled on my shoulders. That's when I noticed it. A shimmer. A faint light flickering to my left. It drew me in, a beacon in the darkness. I approached carefully, each step echoed by the growing hum. As I drew closer, I spotted what looked like an archway formed by twisted vines and stones. It pulsed with the same glow that had emanated from the stone circle, but now it felt different, more sinister, almost hungry. I hesitated. "Just keep moving," I muttered to myself. No time to dwell on fear. I took a breath and stepped through the archway. The moment I did, the hum intensified. I was thrust into another space, this one almost blindingly bright. A long hall stretched out before me, lined with mirrors. The reflections shimmered and shifted, not just repeating my image, but also showing scenes that didn't belong to me. A flash of a girl in a forest. A dark figure looming behind her. I gasped. Was that the girl? Was she in danger? My stomach twisted as I stumbled forward. "Help!" a voice cried from the mirrors. It was a mix of haunting echo and desperation. I couldn't tell if it came from the girl or someone else entirely, but either way, I had to act. I glanced around, searching for the source. Then I saw it again, movement in the reflections. I approached a particular mirror that showed a scene of trees bending under an unseen weight. Through the chaos, I caught sight of a shadow, tall and grotesque. It stood still for a moment, as if sensing my gaze, then brought its attention to me through the reflection. A chill ran down my spine. I turned to run, but the hall twisted, the mirrors reflecting my panic. They seemed to reach out, distorting my body as I hurried back the way I came. I could hear whispers growing louder, the voice tinged with malice. "Join us! Let her go!" I shouted. My voice was more defiant than I felt. I needed to break free from this place. Then the rushing sound of air filled my ears. I braced myself as if expecting the shadows to close in. Instead, I felt the sudden rush of cold air scouring the brightness around me. I stumbled backward, back through the archway, and fell onto the uneven ground. As I regained my bearings, I took a moment to breathe. But the moment was short-lived. Standing before me was the girl. She wasn't alone. Behind her, shadows thrummed with anticipation, and the sense of danger returned, tenfold. "Run!" she shouted, panic flashing in her eyes. I didn't hesitate this time. As we dashed away from the looming threats, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't just running for our lives. We were running towards something dark, something that wanted to trap us both. And then I heard the growls return, closer than before. I sprinted beside the girl, our feet pounding against the rocky ground as we rushed deeper into the darkness. The growls echoed behind us, closer than before, almost like they were toying with us. My mind struggled to keep up with the panic that surged through me. I felt her grip tighten around my wrist, and for a moment, I focused on that. Her alive presence gave me a flicker of hope. We rounded a bend, and suddenly, the shriek of rustling leaves and snapping twigs filled the air. Branches whipped down from either side, nearly snagging me. I ducked just in time, only to glance back for an instant, and I saw one of the shadows break through the trees, dark and massive with eyes that glimmered like shards of ice in the night. "Keep moving," she yelled, her voice laced with urgency. I pushed forward, the fear in my gut threatening to pull me into a spiral of despair. We stumbled across a clearing, the ground flattened out into an open space. My breath came out in heavy bursts as I scanned the area. It looked empty, but something about the silence felt wrong. I could feel the energy shifting, thickening around us. "What do we do now?" I asked, almost choking on the words. "I don't know," she replied, her voice quivering. "There has to be a way out. We can't stay here." I squinted into the shadows cloaking the far edges of the clearing and noticed formations of stones, half buried, but oddly symmetrical. They seemed oddly out of place. I walked towards them cautiously, drawn by an instinct I couldn't explain. "Wait!" She caught up with me but didn't pull me back. "Do you see that?" At first I saw nothing, just rocks and dirt, but then I noticed the markings carved out on the surface of the stones. They glowed faintly, barely visible against the dark. Symbols. My heart raced again, fear mixing with intrigue. I leaned closer, desperately trying to remember what I'd seen in the Hall of Mirrors. That's it. The mirrors showed something like this. I traced a finger along one of the carvings, and a vibration pulsed through the air around us. The girl gasped. "What if that connects us back? We could escape." But then the growls intensified. The shadows were closing in. I could see the grotesque outline of the creature now, its form shifting and bending as it stalked toward us. It didn't want us to find a way out. "Do it! Activate the stones!" she urged, her voice crackling with fear. But then, just as I felt ready to act, the ground trembled beneath us. The stones responded to the presence of the creature, glowing brighter and pulsing with energy, as if feeding off the tension in the air. I couldn't tell if it was warning us or inviting us deeper. I stepped back, uncertainty gripping me. The girl looked at me with wide eyes, and that's when I heard it. A voice, deep and rumbling, reverberating through the ground. "Join us, or perish." The shadows advanced like a wave crashing on the shore, relentless and overwhelming. I realized we didn't just face one threat. We were surrounded. "Run!" I shouted, pulling her away from the stones, adrenaline kicking in. But as we prepared to flee, the ground beneath us erupted, sending dirt and debris flying into the air. Everything went chaotic. That's when I saw it. A different shimmer, this time not from the stones but from the far end of the clearing. A shimmering portal. It felt like a lifeline, but the growls echoed sharply again, warning us against stepping closer. "Go!" The words tore from me in a desperate scream. "We have to get through!" With the shadows looming and the portal pulsing with light, we ran. But I had no idea if it would lead us to safety or another nightmare. All I felt was urgency as we raced toward the unknown, chased by the darkness nipping at our heels. We dashed toward the portal, my heart pounding in my chest. The girl's grip on my wrist felt hotter than ever as we approached the shimmering light. It beckoned us, and I could sense the shadows closing in behind us, their growls morphing into a chorus of twisted voices. "Just a little closer," she shouted, her voice slicing through the chaos. But something felt off. The closer we got, the more that flicker of hope began to dim. It was like the light held its own kind of darkness. As we reached the edge of the portal, I could see strange images swirling inside, a whirlpool of shifting shapes that made my stomach churn. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice barely audible above the growls. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, her face pale yet resolute. We leaped into the light together, and for a moment I felt weightless, like I was suspended in a dream. Then everything snapped back into focus, and we landed hard on cold, wet pavement. Dazed, I looked around. We were outside, but not where I expected. We stood in the middle of a rain-soaked street, lined with old, crumbling buildings. My heart sank when I realized it wasn't the safety I'd hoped for. It was eerily quiet. "Where are we?" she whispered, a hint of fear creeping into her voice. "I don't know." I scanned the area, my eyes darting nervously. The rain pelted down, wrapping everything in a ghostly shroud. The streetlights flickered, illuminating the deserted town, but their glow barely reached past the pools of shadow pooling around them. Suddenly, I heard a low, raspy voice nearby. "You shouldn't have come here." I froze and turned to find a figure emerging from the shadows. A man, or perhaps something that had once been a man, stood half-hidden under an awning. His eyes glowed an unsettling green, pinning us in place. The absence of color in his clothes made it hard to focus on him fully. He looked like he had been dipped in darkness. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my heart racing again. "Just a messenger," he replied, stepping into the light. His skin was paper-thin, stretched tight over bones. "This place is a crossing point. You must leave, before the storm finds you." "What storm?" I asked, looking back toward the portal we'd just escaped. "Not that kind of storm." He gestured to the sky. "The storm within. It desires souls." "What does that even mean?" The girl's voice trembled beside me. "You came for one reason, but you might stay for another," he replied cryptically. Before I could respond, thunder cracked above, shaking the very ground. The air thickened with tension, making it hard to breathe. "Run back!" he suddenly screamed, his eyes wide with fear. Panic surged anew, and I grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her away from him. But then I realized the shadows were not just behind us anymore. They slithered through the streets, creeping closer, their growls mixing with the sound of the rain. "There!" I pointed to a nearby alley, dark and narrow. It wouldn't lead us back to safety, but it felt better than staying out in the open. We sprinted, but as we dove into the alley, I caught a glimpse of the figure. He was still standing there, grinning, as the shadows encroached upon him. "What's happening?" the girl cried as we stumbled through the damp alley. "I don't know," I shouted back, panic rising again. "But we can't stop now." Then I heard that deep, rumbling voice again, the one from the stones. It echoed through the alley, rattling the walls. "Join us, or perish." Something cold gripped my heart as I realized we might not be free yet. We tore through the alley, shadows clinging to our heels like a fog of dread. Rain poured down in relentless sheets, obscuring our vision, and every whispered promise of "join us" reverberated in my head. I could feel the girl beside me, her presence a flickering light against the encroaching darkness. But the terror around us was intoxicating, urging us to submit to it. As we reached the alley's end, we rounded a corner into an open courtyard, bordered by ancient brick buildings. It was eerily quiet here, the sound of rain a harsh reminder of the chaos that pursued us. In the center of the courtyard stood a large stone statue, weathered and cracked. It looked like a guardian, a figure watching over the darkness that shrouded the town. "What now?" the girl breathed, her face pale under the rain. I glanced around, desperate for a plan. "We need to find something to defend ourselves. There has to be a way out." My voice trembled, but I couldn't afford to show fear. The girl nodded, her eyes darting between the shadows closing in on us. She pointed to a rusted metal grate leading into the ground nearby. "What about that?" It seemed like the only option. I pulled the grate open, my heart racing, and we climbed inside, squeezing through the narrow opening into the darkness below. The sound of rain faded as the damp, cold air enveloped us, and we landed on a stone floor, hearts pounding in the heavy silence. "Do you think they can follow us down here?" the girl asked, anxiety tinging her voice. "I don't know," I admitted, scanning the dim corridor before us. "But we can't stay still. We have to keep moving." We crept through the underground passage, the shadows and whispers fading, only to be replaced by an unsettling quiet. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, twisted faces looking down at us from the stone, and a chilling sensation crawled up my back. "Look at these," I said, gesturing to the images. "They remind me of the stones outside." "Do you think they have meaning?" she asked, inching closer to examine the carvings. "Maybe they—" I started, but I was interrupted by a low growl. My heart dropped. It sounded like it was closer this time. "Go! We have to keep going," I urged, grabbing her hand again. We pushed forward, adrenaline coursing through our veins. But as we ran, the sleek surfaces shimmered around us, warping into shapes that felt alive. I could hear it then. the growls morphing into those twisted voices. "Join us," they echoed, wrapping around us like chains, urging us toward surrender. "No," I shouted, breaking into a sprint. "We have to resist." But the shadows were everywhere, almost tangible, grasping at our ankles like desperate hands. We stumbled into a larger chamber, and I caught sight of a stone altar at the center, decorated with the same markings from the courtyard. A flickering light danced across the stones, casting haunting shapes that seemed to watch us closely. "What is this place?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but it feels important." I walked toward the altar, drawn in by some unseen force, when suddenly the chamber was filled with a deafening howl. The shadows emerged, swirling around us, engulfing the space in darkness. "Join us," they whispered again, voices thick with despair and hunger. I clutched the girl's hand tighter, but as I faced the swirling chaos, I felt something shift. An indiscernible weight bore down on my chest, demanding submission. I dropped to my knees, fighting against the pull of despair threatening to engulf me. "Don't," the girl urged, pulling me back. "We can't give in." Her words acted like an anchor, anchoring me back to reality. With a burst of energy, I pushed against the darkness. "We won't be yours," I shouted, and the shadows recoiled as if burned. The altar resonated with my declaration, glowing brighter. The carvings lit up, illuminating the chamber with a striking, pure light. The shadows shuddered, and the figures in the wall screamed, a desperate sound echoing through the darkness. "Focus on the light," I cried, lifting my gaze to the altar. "It's our way out." With every ounce of strength, I pulled the girl closer, taking a step toward the light. The shadows howled in protest, clawing at us, but we continued to push through, the warmth igniting our resolve. The light swirled around us, and for a breathless moment, I felt like I was suspended between two worlds. And then we jumped. The air rushed past, a brilliant cascade of color enveloping us. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for impact as the sounds of the shadows faded, replaced by a soothing silence. When I opened my eyes again, we stood breathless in a familiar place. The rainy street from before, but somehow different. The shadows, the growls, the whispers, they were gone. Just the soft patter of rain remained, a gentle reminder of the chaos we had escaped. "We did it," the girl breathed, her wide eyes reflecting the newly calm surroundings. But as I turned to look behind us, something nagged at me. The street felt empty, almost too still. The weight of our experience settled into my bones. "Did we really escape?" I whispered aloud. "I hope so," she replied, though her expression mirrored my unease. I took a step forward, but uncertainty gripped me. The figure from before, the shadowy growl, it didn't feel finished. Instead, behind us, in the hazy glow of streetlights, I swore I saw flickers of movement, shadows twisting and coiling without form. I didn't want to believe it, but a chill whispered in my ear, reassuring me that whatever we had faced was far from over. Questions hung in the air unspoken. What would happen next? Would we meet the figures again? Were we truly free? The rain continued to pour, washing away the traces of what had happened, but deep down, I knew that darkness has a way of lingering, silent, waiting for the next storm to rise.